This show is brought to you by Safety FM.
What's up, peeps? Welcome back to Rebranding Safety. Back to our normally scheduled content this week, outside of the mini-series, and we're talking to an amazing person, a lady that I love and that many people out there do love. Let's jump into the intro and tell us some more about it.
The problem in safety isn't deviation, it's complexity.
Health and safety has gone mad.
Health and safety is trying to unpick having gone mad in the past.
There's no one solution and one problem. The problem is that we are looking for one solution.
Does the structure of the team allow them to flourish?
Feel safe enough to be uncomfortable.
The environment defines our behaviours.
People aren't the problem, they're the solution.
Rebranding Safety, crushing the stereotype. Brought to you by Risk Fluent. What's up, peeps? Welcome back to Rebranding Safety. Rebranding Safety is the YouTube channel and podcast doing exactly what it says on the tin. We're here to change the perception of health and safety. So if you're new here, hit that subscribe button and the bell and all those magical algorithm thingies on whatever platform you are listening / watching us on. Today we are talking to the amazing, the legendary Anna Keane. Anna Keane is absolutely awesome. I'm not going to try and introduce her. She'll do a much better job, but had an amazing kind of emergent conversation, one of my favorite types of conversations where we didn't really plan what we were going to talk about. We just said, hey, let's jump on it, let's press record and see what happens. So we do talk about stationery probably a little bit too much, but I'm a little bit of I kind of love that shit. So yeah, we have a good chat about stationery. So if you're really keen on understanding how we kind of manage our days, then this will probably help you. And then we get into loads of stuff. So I hope you enjoy this conversation. But before we get into it, just a quick message from our sponsor, Paradigm HP, and more specifically the HSE subscription service. Paradigm HP's HSE subscription service is the perfect solution for those small, medium-sized enterprises that are absolutely rammed, and sometimes safety might fall by the wayside. Not because you don't care or anything like that, just because that's life. And you think, oh, maybe we could do better at that. And you want to go and tick all the boxes for your regulatory and industry compliance. But at the same time, you don't just want to have an off-the-shelf system. This is a solution for you. Paradigm Human Performance are exactly that. They are human performance experts. They're human organizational performance specialists. So this is not your bog standard off-the-shelf system that you're going to have to kind of declutter in a few years. This is nailed down, hot, woven throughout it. This is the perfect solution for those organizations that want to make worker safety part of your DNA, the ones that want to be able to utilize that worker subject matter expertise at the front line. So if you're interested, then you can ring Paradigm or email Paradigm, in the phone number and email address is in the description below. Or you can go to their brand new website and check everything out there. And you can also get yourself signed up to the Learning Organization webinar, which is an outstanding resource run every Thursday at 2 p.m. And once you've signed up as well, you can get access to all of the backlog of webinars that they've had as well. So an outstanding learning resource. Go check that out as well. Okay, just a quick note as well from my company, Project Mollitiam. Project Mollitiam is the mastermind community for those that manage risk and safety within their role. Whether you do that as your sole career or whether you do that as part of an operational role, risk management, health and safety professionals, this is the right place for you. We have weekly calls where we literally talk about our problems, our challenges, and we help each other out. Or we get deep into something that's been going on LinkedIn that week, or talking all about BrewDog and what is trust and all this stuff. So if you want a community where you can solve your own problems, this is the place for you. You can message me and I'll get you on one of our community calls free of charge. They run weekly. We also run a philosophy call once a month and a book club once a month and a quarterly digital event as well. So go check it out, www.projectmollitiam.com, or like I say, message me or Colin Nottage and we'll get you on a call completely free of charge. You can try it before you buy it. Without further ado, let's get into my chat with Anna Keane.
Hello, Anna.
Oh. Hi, how are you?
Welcome to the podcast. I'm good, thank you very much. I'm very good. For those people that have lived in a cave for the last few years that might not, for crazy reasons, might not even know who Anna Keane is, do you want to give us a very quick introduction and we'll get into our chat?
Okay. So I founded about 5 years ago now. Actually, it's 5 years in like a couple of weeks. 5 years ago, a company called Acre Frameworks, and we focus on developing non-technical skills in the safety profession. So my big belief is that for years, this profession has focused on developing or changing the behaviours of other people in order to create safety. We challenge safety professionals to look at their own behaviours and the impacts that they are having on I suppose, the purpose of getting people home safe. So when are their behaviours enabling that, and when are they maybe preventing it. So yeah, and I recruited for about 14 years before I set Frameworks up, always in health and safety in London and over in Sydney for a while. And I suppose I just became really frustrated, bored with interviewing health and safety professionals that had all the technical stuff. And then when we talked about, you know, standard competency question, give me an understanding of when you've influenced someone, they're like, well, I tell them they need to do it, else they'll go to jail. So there was just some work to be done there with this group of people. And quite honestly, no one else was talking about it. So I decided to take a bit of a leap of faith and set Frameworks up, then partnered with Acre, who are a recruitment company. So I still get to keep my hand very much in identifying like talent and making sure our clients get the right people, but more so I'm passionate about making sure safety professionals have the skills to make impact. That's it, really.
And you're in America as well, aren't you? On your website.
Yeah, we've got offices in New York and in Amsterdam now.
Nice.
But currently we're like, global work at the moment. We're in about 30 countries.
Oh, wow.
So we're working, we did a session this week where we had someone from Sydney, China, Canada, America, South Africa, and Europe, all on the same call.
Nice.
I mean, some of them were up in the middle of the night, but
yeah,
that, you know, that to me is, I suppose it's an outcome of where we are from post-COVID, but actually with technology these days, you know, it's not
anywhere.
Proximity. Yeah. So yeah, it's exciting, really exciting, really exciting the work we're doing at the moment.
Where's your UK office? Is that in London?
Yeah, Holborn.
So you've got offices in probably the 3 coolest places in the world: London, New York, and Amsterdam.
It might be, you know, it might be luck, or it might just be we really like this place. So yeah, I think we have ambitions to grow further than that. We've got a couple of other cool cities lined up for next. But to be fair, with everything that's happening, another big part of Acre is we do a lot in what we focus on purpose-led professions. So anything from like responsible investment, CR, sustainability, those markets are booming at the moment. And in places like America, with Biden coming in, there's just that reinvigoration of those markets just means, yeah, it's going from strength to strength.
Cool. Pre-COVID, did you go out there much, or were you much more engaged?
I haven't been to either of the offices because I was pregnant all the time. Since we opened them, I was mainly pregnant, but I was lucky enough actually to travel a fair bit, like a few years before COVID struck, doing like we worked with the likes of Amazon, so I've been out to Seattle, did some conferences over in Europe, do some work over in The Hague and things like that. So yeah, I enjoy that part of it, mainly to get away from the kids, but also nice to sit to actually spend. I do what I do because I find people fascinating. So actually being in a company, understanding the culture, understanding the environment in which they work, just helps us do better. So although virtual is giving us access and making things that we do really available to people in all locations, I still miss sitting down with a client and having a coffee and a good chat and building that relationship.
Yeah, I can relate to that. I'm so desperate to like go out to some of my members like properties and factories and stuff and just get stuck into some real work. Like just go there and be like, right, what's your problem?
I love nothing better than sitting around a table with a challenge and like really
post-its all over the wall.
Give me a whiteboard and a flip chart and I'm the happiest person. I'm really visual, so they take they joke about it internally at Acre, but I have mind maps for everything. I don't write in linear fashion. My head is, and when I show them sometimes they're like, is that everything in your head? And I'm like, yeah, terrifyingly no.
Yeah. But we're like kindred spirits, I'm telling you. Literally. I call them Brainfarts. I have like 2 books.
Oh, yeah.
I live out of I'm very modern. I live out of a file of facts, color code.
I love your file of facts.
Oh yes.
Man after my own heart.
And like that's got all of my notes in, rebranding safety, the day job, like get wife Mother's Day present, everything in there. And then I've got
Yeah.
And then I've got like an A4 book, which is like my project kind of book, which has all my brain farts in. So I'll be writing note, and I've got these two things I do. I've got a morning dump. So every morning, and not in the traditional sense of a morning dump, right? Bear with me. Don't worry. I'm not going to talk about toilet humor. I've got the morning dump, which basically is every morning I put the date on there, and then I'll just put morning dump, and I just look at my diary, write down what I'm going to do for the day, like plan the day out and stuff like. But getting it out onto paper for me is so powerful. And then sometimes I'll have morning dump, and then underneath I'll be like, I don't know, work on blah blah, see brain fart 25th of January 2021. So if somebody looked into my notebook, they would see morning dump, see brain fart.
Whatever works for you, James.
Yeah, you know what I mean? But the humor of it really works, because every morning I find it enjoyable, because I write it and I'm like,
yeah, it's not sure, right? Actually, yeah, I love to do this. It drives my husband mad, but I write things on that I've done so I can cross them out. Love a highlighter. The happiest place I ever worked was when I was in Sydney. We had glass walls in the office, so it's like over, and we all got these chalk pens. So we all wrote, when we took a job on, we put all our candidate. Just the art of writing on walls just made me feel really happy.
Yeah. Like everyone's like, oh, you know, we got to get COVID screens. I'm looking at all these COVID screens, and I'm like, that is cool, man. It's like having a whiteboard right in front of you.
Chalk pens in the future.
Yeah.
How did we get onto this?
No idea. And welcome to Rebranding Productivity, the podcast about productivity and
stationery.
Love stationery. I love stationery. I could honestly just geek out about all of this stuff. Like, I literally, my guilty pleasure is watching productivity YouTube channels, like people that are like, today I'm going to show you my productivity desk setup, and I'm just like, yeah, like this is how I journal, and I'm like, oh yeah, tell me more. Anyway, moving swiftly on.
Amazing, great place to start.
We will go anywhere in rebranding safety. That's why when people are like, oh, I send them the little content plans that we do and stuff like that, and I send it over to people, I'm like, trust me, don't rely on this content plan, because it could go anywhere.
You know what? I enjoy that though, because that means limited preparation. Let's just talk about what we're passionate about.
Yeah.
And it also means that you can get stuck in some really interesting conversations like stationery.
Oh yeah, 100%. The problem is everyone listening like is going, can you please stop talking about stationery? Like, this is not a stationery podcast. Yeah, what are we talking about?
I think some people out there that are going, yes, amen, I absolutely understand what you guys are talking about.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, there's somebody right now listening to this that just goes, I've never thought about getting a file of facts, but that is a great idea.
Or a chalk pen.
Or a chalk pen. Glass walls and everything. Honestly, I'm going to do a video soon on like how I kind of keep track of everything, because I get so many questions like how do you kind of keep track, and I'm like, literally file of facts is always my answer. Like, so I've tried everything. I've tried different notebooks for each kind of thing.
People with their technology, with their pads and like pens.
I've tried that. I've tried doing everything on my phone. I've tried doing everything on a tablet. I've tried tablet and phone, and laptop. I've tried every combination you could ever think of. And I always come back to, absolutely my entire life is in a file of facts. For me, that's
my other favorite thing, red pen. I'm a real fan of a two different color biros.
Parker Jotter. It's always, you know, the amount of money I spend on Parker Jotters because I lose them. I could be rich.
I want to pick you for Christmas.
Yeah, honestly, if somebody sent me a Parker Jotter for Christmas, I'll be like, best Christmas present ever. So I have a Parker Jotter. I have a.
Get them branded. I'll send you a Parker Jotter.
Definitely, always got a highlighter on me, and then I have this other cool ass pen, which is really a complete waste of money because it's basically a pencil, but it's a pen that you can rub out, which yes is a pencil. Yes. I could, but I saw it on Amazon and I was like, that is cool, and it's made by Filofax. It was extortionately overpriced, and I mean, you're just ticking all the boxes for me. Like,
hooked worked on stationery.
That's it. And I brought it, and my wife was like, "Why have you just spent like £15 on a pencil?" And I was like, "No, it's not a pencil, it's a pen that rubs out," which is a pencil, James. Anyway, we're still talking about stationery. What's going on?
Let's see. You. This is.
Thing is, I'm really conflicted now because I really want to talk about stationery, like for the rest of the hour. Yeah. No, I can't do it.
Let's move on.
Yeah. So we've already said you've already kind of let's kind of focus actually a little bit. I'd like to focus on that point that you mentioned when you were recruiting people, and they're all very. I can relate to what you said, like in that interviews where you're getting, how do you influence people? Well, I either tell them a really scary story or I tell them they could be in jail. And then when you get to a point where they go, well, that's never happened in the 50 years I've been working. And you're like, oh shit, I'm out of arguments now. What do I do? Like, and that genuinely, that I think every safety professional goes through, maybe not so much new safety professionals coming in, because I feel like there's a lot more, maybe there's a lot more conversations around psychology and influencing and stuff. But when I joined about 9 years ago, when I joined the profession, there was no conversations about that whatsoever.
No, so this year's my 20th year in health and safety, which is terrifying.
No way.
So I started.
Did you start at the age of 2 or something then, Anna?
I started at, thank you, James, that's very kind of you. But, I started at 18 working for a health and safety consultancy. It was my first job.
Oh, wow.
So I used to put to work health and safety consultants, and it was go out, inspect, and then come back with a list of failures. Like that was literally their job, was go out and find everything that was wrong. That's what clients paid us to do. And that was my introduction to health and safety, and definitely the first few years of recruiting. It was find someone with a NEBOSH that can shout loudly, can tell other people what they're doing wrong. That was literally it. It was dream job. You do a search, NEBOSH. What am I kidding? It wasn't on the computer. It was like in a pile of CDs. Find the NEBOSH, and then you'd fax it over to the client. And it was easy. It was really easy. And then I worked a lot in construction, started pushing back and saying, actually, Anna, we need someone that can work with the site team to keep site going rather than just stopping site working all the time. Okay, so we started looking for that. And that was a bit harder to find, someone that could maybe communicate, maybe engage, maybe be part of the team. And then, especially when I got to Australia, it was, okay, we need someone that can develop a strategy, get other people to feel excited about that strategy, can innovate. And I was like, what? The safety profession?
Innovate?
Don't
Don't blaspheme.
think that this handbrake, this policeman, this officer, and they weren't talking about that. They were talking about enabling, coaching. And I suppose it made me really reflect on what I'd seen in the UK and that kind of traditional mindset, and how that was holding a lot of professionals back. They were thinking, once I've acquired my, let's take NEBOSH, my diploma, and I've got my chartered membership, apart from completing some CPD, actually I'm done. I know everything. I've got all the answers. And there was a real lack of self-awareness and curiosity about this skill set that actually I believe is critical. If this profession genuinely has a purpose of getting people home safe and healthier, then I do think the behaviours are limiting that. I know I sat through inductions that were mind-numbingly boring. You're like, what? If this is safety, then I am checking out. But if that's someone's interaction with safety, then why are they going to engage? Why are they going to bring them to the table when they're making a really important decision? So that's where I just felt like actually the profession had no tools, no support to really reflect around these skills that were so important, and then to actually make some change. It was all development reviews. What do you want to develop this year? I want to do some work at heights and some confined spaces, but actually that wasn't the stuff that was stopping them getting people home safe. It was their lack of understanding of psychology and how to engage, or giving themselves time to be curious and ask questions or innovate. So there's still so much work to be done. On that.
Yeah.
is improving. Like
I
I feel really like infused over the last 18 months, 2 years, the momentum that people like you are driving. Some of the young leaders forums are actually, this is the way that you guys do safety. You enable it, you create it, rather than you go and complete the tasks, kind of thing.
There has been, to be fair, I've kind of said the same. The last 18 years, the last 18 months to 2 years, has just been a really swift shift, like, which is
Yep.
strange, and I'm just going to put this out there. Rebranding Safety started about 2 years ago. So, I mean, I'm just saying.
Interestingly, when I launched Frameworks, our tagline, I think I shared this with you when we first spoke, our tagline was rebranding safety one individual at a time.
Yeah, I
And
remember
what
you
I
telling
was
me.
really focused on was like, if we can support people to develop differently, then they put a different brand of safety into a work environment, which changes people's perspective. And then we rebrand it. So it was like, so yeah.
Thank God you didn't copyright it.
But yeah, I remember going onto the streets of London and asking people what they thought of health and safety. It's hilarious.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
And I got quite a lot of challenge at that point, that I'd picked like select group of people, and I was like, no, there was nothing positive. I didn't get one positive remark all day. Got a lot of angry people that needed to vent.
Yeah. It was a select group of people, not safety professionals. It was normal people.
Just normal people doing their job.
Yeah. It's interesting. I said, I think I said it in my 2021 predictions video that we put out like this week, when we're recording this, and I think I said in there, there seems to have been a real shift in how, like, or maybe not a shift, because it was there before. Like, all of this work has been existing for such a long time, like, human factors, all that stuff's been around since like the 50s, something crazy like that. When you look back at some of the research from like in the safety science space, some of it's years old, and you're just like, well, how come we haven't seen it before? But in the last 2 years ish, there's just been a mad increase in people talking about this. And I'm not blowing my own trumpet, because it's not just me, but I genuinely do think podcasts had a big part to play in that, because when I started, there was a handful in the Safety FM kind of audience. So you had Safety FM, you had Todd Conklin's podcast, which obviously is one of the most established. And then there was Safety on Tap, and then there was another one, I can't remember. And there was probably a few more, but they were the big ones that people knew about. In England, you had one that was going about a few months just before me, the Safety Spoke with an Eye podcast. And then you had Sonny Gopal, which is kind of like, I call him the original gangster. He was doing this for years before all of us, but that was it. And then like I started, and then I think at the same time as me, I think Sam Goodman, the Hop Nerd, started, and then Colin started in England, and then literally it's kind of snowballed from there. Safety FM's kind of grown massively. I think at the same time, there seems to have been a massive increase in the kind of new way of thinking of safety, seems to have gone a bit nuts as well. And then maybe, I don't know what you think about this, Anna, but maybe LinkedIn changed as well. LinkedIn became, over the last couple of years, not just about a place where you put your CV. It became a place for us all to engage and share ideas. That seems to have picked up in the last 2 years. And I think that is probably the main driver of this massive change that we're seeing.
And it's about taking I remember coming back from Australia, setting up Frameworks, and we did some work with, over in Australia, I'd done work with John Green and people like that on Safety Differently. And we set up events with John over here just to start talking about it. And it was still, people were really challenged by it, quite still division, I think, but the whole profession was a bit crazy. But actually what it did, and what a lot of these things do, is they make, if you're curious, they give you things to access. And I will bang on about curiosity until I'm blue in the face. I think that's what this profession needs to be. And actually, people like you give people an easy place to start. They don't have to go and buy a book or read a book. They just have to plug headset in and listen and hear
Yeah.
different ideas, and then they can be challenged about it, they can form opinions, but actually I think they're not just being knowledge from your NEBOSH or your IOSH, and actually hearing views that are much broader and actually come from different viewpoints. And I think that curiosity is actually allowing people to access different things. So
Yeah.
I worry though that we're still in a bubble.
Yeah,
I talk about this
definitely.
quite a lot before COVID bubble, that we're in like this bubble of people that think that way, but actually I know when I coach people and I start talking about innovation and micro experimentation and having good questions rather than having good answers, I get a load of, well, you know, if I don't have if someone asks me if it's safe and I don't have the answer, how am I credible? Like that's their saboteur. That's the thing that holds them back from trying something different. So that's why I'm so passionate about the work we do, is because actually there is a curious, progressive part to this profession, but then there's a huge community that actually just need some support. You know, they just need to be challenged to do some exploration on how they feel, and actually, you know, be given some guidance that actually allows them to, you know, an introduction to something like what you do is a really great starting point. I recommend your podcast to people all the time, especially people at the beginning of their careers.
Oh, thanks.
You know, talk about innovation and it's all right anytime. But actually, I'm like, if, you know, we talk about conceptual thinking and looking for different views and challenging different views. You don't have to agree with what everyone says, but actually go and do that. So go and be curious and listen to what people like you are talking to, what your guests are saying, and listen and ask questions and engage in the conversation, but then form a view off the back of it. You don't have to accept everything you hear, but actually, you know, be curious in the first place.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
I think we tried to, I think there was a word you said there which kind of struck a chord with me, where you said like it's kind of like accessibility to a lot of this stuff has changed, or it's easier. And I think that sometimes we get tagged as a Safety 2 podcast, which irks me quite a bit, if I'm honest. Like, yes, my view on safety is probably more aligned with that community or approach or whatever you want to call it. Yeah, it is. But I try rock quite hard on this channel to try and put across as many different views as possible. Now it's hard because when you're badged with a certain view of safety, some of the people that are the other view don't feel safe coming on and talking about it. But like, it's important to me, I think, that like whenever people message me and say like, James, what should I do? You know, do I want to be safety 2? And I'm just like, well, don't just limit yourself to one. Like, don't just pick safety 2. Like just have a listen to like Dom Cooper, who's like so behavioral based safety, like 100%. He's got some good stuff to talk about. He's got experience, he's got knowledge. And then go and listen to Eric Honagel as well. And then be like, right, oh, I love what Eric said here, so I'm going to take this bit. Like I always say in my very crude fashion, you're at a buffet. Don't just eat the sausage rolls, eat all of it.
And just go and like, and that's why actually one of the drivers for me bringing the Safety 2 conversation to the UK wasn't because it was like, I believe that this is the way forward. I don't know enough.
Yeah.
I just like the fact someone was saying something different.
Yeah. And
actually, we just had one way of doing safety, or slight nuances, but you know, all of the same. Where actually it was like, let's look at what psychology's telling us. Let's look at HOP. I absolutely love the buffet analogy, but you know, pick the best bits from each. Pick the bits that really resonate.
Yeah.
I also know people that have been doing like New View Safety 2 for years and never called it that, because actually
Exactly.
that's just their natural style. Right? So
Exactly.
I don't think we need to label it. I just think we need to be open to exploring, is there a different way? Yeah. Definitely 4 or 5 years ago, I think the way that you heard about new things in safety was you went to like some sort of conference.
Yeah.
And those things were big money. I remember the Irish conference was like £1,000 or something, like ridiculous money to go to. Wow. Yeah, that might have just been to me. But, you know, but I think, you know, it was these one day, or the expo was free, but actually back then they didn't have a lot of like speaker content. It was more just stands. And actually, I think that people had a really limited access to different ideas was really limited. So you might buy some books and read some books, but actually like to listen to other people talk, to hear different ideas, to have your thoughts challenged. Unless you were really at that senior end where you were invited to conferences and events, like actually the majority of people, there was your IOSH like local network or your big IOSH conference, but actually I don't think there was huge amounts outside of that, which is I think where things are changing now. I think recruitment companies have definitely upped their games in terms of events and like giving people access. I know we do Inspire, which is like our future leaders program. I know there's Safety for Good and some things like that. I think, you know, there's people like you going out independently and talking. There's Paul Clark and his series of events which are free to attend. I think there's just more out there, which means actually if you are curious, you've just got more places to start, which is great. It's absolutely what we need to be doing.
Yeah, definitely. Do you think diversity is a part of it as well? Like it's becoming a bit more diverse. It's got a long way to go, a long way to go.
Yeah.
Like a long way to go. Just to reiterate.
I'm hugely passionate about diversity, but diversity of thought. And I think by building a diverse team, you get a diversity of thought. We have a huge issue around diversity in this profession. I think the gender thing is moving. I think, you know, different backgrounds, different ethnicity, different beliefs. And actually for me, diversity of thought was probably the first thing, with things like bringing in challenging views of safety, was actually just trying to create different diversity of thought. But you have to, I think as a profession, what we have to be able to do is you can't just create, you know, okay, we want to have a more diverse pool of talent, but actually you have to create an environment where that talent can be heard, where people listen. There's a great line, I think Jonathan Gawthorpe, MCOR, first told me it was, you can buy diversity, you have to build inclusion. And that to me, it's like, because actually, you know, when you're recruiting, you can go out and you can pick people from multiple backgrounds. You can look at, I want, you know, more women in my team or more people from diverse ethnic backgrounds. But actually, unless you create an environment of psychological safety where people can challenge, can present their views differently, then effectively, you know, those people will get rejected like an organ. It's a bit like when I coach a lot of senior women, and I see when they are the first woman on a board, actually, you know, how they really establish themselves and how they make sure they're heard, and then, you know, not just a token. Actually, how they actually, that's a lot to do about the men in the room, and actually how much they're willing to listen, to really have their thoughts and feelings challenged. It comes back to me to vulnerability. But no, I think diversity in this profession is absolutely still like a really critical agenda. I love, most of my clients are female, which I don't know if that's by nature that they're more curious in behaviour, they're more focused on development. I don't know. I don't want to make any assumptions.
We're scared of you, Anna. We had a meeting, all of us men. We're like, no, she scares us.
Actually, you know, I did some work a couple of years ago, and we looked at data sets of psychometric data of women and men, and actually things like, you know, I can only speak anecdotally now because I don't have the data, but what we look at around caring and interest in other people's motivations and behaviours, consultation, we found in, you know, I'm not saying we didn't find them in the men we were working with, but we definitely found them present in the women. So I think just having that different viewpoint is, women are maybe more likely to get vulnerable. You know, I don't know. It definitely takes some work, but
I think there's a very big societal issue with men, and I speaking as a man. I'm not speaking for all men, just as a man myself. I think that it's,
and I'm not speaking for a woman, but
it's we're raised in all aspects there's a certain image of a man, you know, hard, not vulnerable. You know, we're raised to not be vulnerable. I remember at such a young age. Yeah, I remember at such a young age, my dad left when I was really young, and I was regularly referred to as the man of the house when I was like a baby. Now it's just a figure of speech, but like now that I've grown up and I've started to understand psychology a little bit and how much these little words and things can in a child, you know, a young boy's head can start to grow and become something else. Man, that's definitely had an impact on how I've seen myself for many years. You know, the man's the one to kind of protect the household and stuff like that. I think what it's important, I think anyway, that when we're having this conversation, which I agree with what you're saying, women are inherently more, they're quicker to get that stuff. I don't think it's, well, and again, I have no evidence to back this up, no science to back this up. I'm literally speaking from my own assumptions and experience that, you know, we are kind of, well, we're a product of our own environment, aren't we? And that's the environment around men is we're a certain way. We're hard, we're not vulnerable, we're strong, you know, and you know that kind of contributing to this mental health crisis we're going through as well. And you watch the news or you watch any film, there's an assumption that the bad guy is a guy, bad guy. Now, every single time you look at the copper being like, we're gonna get this guy. And it's not a guy, it's a woman. But we make an assumption it's always a guy because yet statistically it is always men. I get that 100%. But you know, is there like a little bit of like, I don't know, cognitive influence that happens all the time when we do little things like that? I don't know.
Like, having coached women and men in this profession, I think when it comes to things like, you know, all the aspirational comments we make about health and safety, like we want operations to own health and safety. We want you to ask good questions, not have good answers. And then when I actually coach men about that, and when we do quite a lot of digging into like patterns of negative self-talk, the stories we tell ourselves, saboteurs, because I suppose the difference between the work we do in most learning and development companies is we don't just go to, here's some courses. We actually understand what stops you from developing, what stops you being curious, what stops you being courageous. And when we get into this with men, often it is, you know, I'm the provider in the house. So if I suddenly can't be credible at work and have the answers when my boss comes to me, or if business actually owns operations, I don't have a job. I have a mortgage to pay. I have a family to feed. Like and I will be challenged day in, day out. But that is the challenge that this profession is facing, is when we say, you know, we want you to go and micro experiment and innovate. And they're working in an environment where they're expected to order the PPE and make sure the skips are emptied. And I'm like, if I don't do that, I won't get paid. They won't think I'm doing my job, because that's what operations are for. And I think that's definitely for men, is actually taking a step back, appreciating, you know, what their role is within that organization. How do they show credibility in a different way? I definitely think there's a unique set of challenges for men and for women in that, but I definitely see that when I coach men, that not having the answer, that not knowing, it brings up vulnerability, and we have been conditioned, men and women, conditioned over years that vulnerability is weakness. That's why I recommend Brené Brown's work to literally everyone I speak to, because what she talks about around shame and vulnerability and the power of that is game changing.
Brené Brown, right? I'm sure she's been around for a very long time, but this week, every single day, somebody has mentioned her name.
Really?
Every single day, and twice today. You're the second today.
Really? Kendall in my team introduced me to Brené Brown probably 2.5, 3 years ago. Maybe because they're both Texan. I don't know. But if I could, if Kendall had one dream, it would be to meet Brené Brown. But she introduced us all as a team to it, and the whole concept of Dare to Lead. And we do modules on the Braving Trust elements. And to me, there was just actually, it really struck a chord with this whole profession and what we're trying to get them to do, and the places we have to take professionals in order for them to acquire different skills, because we are asking them, you know, the rules, the system, the qualifications they've acquired all give them comfort and credibility. It's like, I know the answers, you know, I can regurgitate the law. That was the amount of interviews I've done where they've come in with folders of qualifications and, you know, I want to show you everything I've achieved, but actually take that away, which is actually what many of our clients are now saying is, you know, the system isn't necessarily correct. You know, planned versus actual is different, you know, and then we're asking them to get vulnerable. So even when it's someone rings them and says, can we do this? And even though they want to go no, we challenge people to ask questions. You know, that takes people to a place they don't feel comfortable. And we have to appreciate that puts stress on people, and they need support to become vulnerable. So yeah, it's fascinating. Brené's a god in so many ways. I think because she puts it into actually she puts it into really relatable language. She's a really good storyteller, and I love people that can tell stories, because I'm not very theoretical. I love applications, so I love understanding how that plays out in the real world. And I think the power of something like what Brené does is actually to put it into language you understand.
I'm telling you now, we're kindred spirits, Anna. 100%. I'm exactly the same. I really struggle with research papers, but give me a good storyteller. I'm sitting there and listening to you all day. I've just read a book that Adam Johns, the legend. I just start calling him Adam the Legend Johns, I think. He sent me this book to Iceberg is Melting by John Cotter.
I have heard of it, but I've not read it. Okay.
It's a fable, basically. It's about penguins and how it's change management. It's teaching people about change management, but it's a fable about penguins and their iceberg is melting. So what they're going to do, how the leader gets the message out, tells everyone we need to change, and then how they manage that change. And I probably read that like that. Like, it was just such a good book. There was little funny bits in it. It was a story. But then at the end of the book, he ties in all his, like, John Cotter's got 8 steps of change management. Like, his 8 key points, they're all throughout the book and they're highlighted as you read through the fable. But then at the end, he explains them in a kind of more academic way, but you've got the story. And I'm just like, and that's also why I think Matthew Syed does so well, because he's such a good storyteller. And like his book Rebel Ideas, I bang on about it all the time. Everyone talks about black box thinking. I think the book we need to be talking about is Rebel Ideas. And just how he tells stories in that is so powerful. Like, I think people overlook it. Like, if he's talking about interviewing someone, he doesn't just say, when I interviewed Anna, for example, he'll be like, I interviewed Anna on a wet, cold day, and I'm driving to, so you feel like you're a fly on the wall. I think that's what podcasts do really well as well. Like, if you listen to like Joe Rogan's podcast, you feel like a fly on the wall. You feel like you just, because he leaves the mic knocks in and he leaves all of that stuff. So you feel like you're a fly on the wall. That's what storytelling does. And I think that puts the message in your brain so much better, in my opinion.
I did a thing on storytelling recently, and I love telling stories, but they're usually other people's stories that I'm telling. So I spend all day, every day, talking to people in this profession, whether it's coaching them or just having a, good old, rant. But actually, that's what I love, is acquiring other people's stories and then telling them, because to me, that's how I learn. That's how I get a message. And this is the whole diversity of thought. I work in a very small team in Frameworks, but we are all very different. So Kendall is an academic. Her favorite term is evidence-based. But I need someone like that, because she gives me stuff and then I go, okay, that's great, but like, make it come to life for me. I want to feel it. I want to go through the motion. I want to give it a go. And I think that's that opportunity to experiment with some of this stuff is
exciting.
That's where the
so exciting. Yeah.
I mean, that's what I do. I love, and I really start a lot of books and I take one thing away. So, some of my favorite books, it's a book called The Alliance. That's how, like, two-way contracting. So it changes the way you look at like your employee relationships. So you don't bring people on for life anymore. You're writing these down. The Culture Map. That was a brilliant recommendation from Ruth Denyer, who's now at Netflix. She recommended that to me last year. That's a brilliant one and it just gives you stories about how different cultures interact. but I'm a real applier. So when I read something, I want to give it a go.
Yeah.
I've just read No Rules by Netflix, and everyone naked is like, oh God, she's off on one. I'm like, informed captains, context not control. We're tearing up the expense policy, and they're like, oh God, she's off on one. But that's what it makes me want to do. I love hearing other people's stories, then going, oh, what could I do with that? Let me have a go. That's where I'm like, that's when I get flow. That state of flow is when I'm like, oh, let's just do something different.
Yeah. I tell you now, we are exactly the same. I'm like I have not shut up about Rebel. If a book hits me, if a book really hits me, I'm talking about it all the time. Like I just finished Simon Sinek's Start With Why, which we spoke about. I didn't think the book was great. I'm going to do a book review on it, but I love his message.
Like video. I'm a real fan of Vivian. Yeah, tell me the story.
Yeah, exactly. And he does have some really good stories. I just don't think they came very well in the book. But that aside, his message, like that's literally all I'm saying all the time. Like I'm talking about a certain company a lot lately that's very prominent in the safety professional in profession, and I say all the time, I think they've lost their why.
I do. I wrote an article about it 4 years ago. I think this profession's lost its why.
Yes, yeah, I agree 100%.
One of the best books I've read, and you've got a young daughter, haven't you? So
baby girl,
get it on your reading list. The Lion Inside is genuinely one of my favourite books. It's by a lady called Rachel Bright. She's also written the Squirrels That Squabbled, the Warriosaurus. You know,
The Lion Inside.
Yeah, The Lion Inside.
Oh, the lion, as in the animal.
Raw, yeah, raw.
Raw.
Raw, very posh line. It's a story about a mouse that feels like they haven't got a voice, so they go to a lion to ask. And there's a line in it, and I can't remember it off the top of my head, but it's something around, if you want to change the world, you have to first change you. And the message in that, just to me, every time I read it to my sons, I'm just like, yeah.
Yeah,
I need to remember.
I say something similar all the time, and I stole it from someone, but I can't. I wish I knew so that I could credit them, because it is my favorite saying: "Be the change you want to see."
Yeah,
like,
right.
Just
so
be it.
This book is absolutely that. So it's a story of a mouse that wants to learn how to roar, and it's terrifying and it's scary. But this mouse recognizes, if I want to change the world, I have to start with me. And that to me is like, if I could gift that to every safety professional, like, if I want to get people home safe at the end of every day, I have to start with me. Like, that to me is like core message. Prime reading should be handed to every safety professional when they enter.
So let's kind of focus on that. So let's say, okay, that's a fair point, Anna. I want to focus on myself. You've mentioned curiosity, courage, and creativity a lot. That's they're your values at Acre. Like those kind of words could probably, correct me if you think I'm wrong, but like you could probably call them the soft skills, like, or power skills, or whatever we want to call them.
Power skills, soft
skills. Shout out to Hayley Wright. She was the first one to tell me about that. Great like word, phrase, whatever you want to call it. But yeah, you call these power skills, vital skills, whatever you want to call them. But the softer skills, the non-technical skills. Yeah. How does one get them? Like, because I think we are so ingrained to what you said earlier of doing a course, getting a certificate. Like we're starting to see increased courses online or whatever around these. Like, and then some people just say, like, I had a debate with someone on LinkedIn the other day, and he was like, you get your NEBOSH, you get your technical skills, and then you just learn the rest. And I was like, I'm just kind of, but how do I know I'm learning right? If I'm just, let's say I only ever work in manufacturing, right? I'd lose that thought diversity that you're talking about, cognitive diversity. I only have manufacturing ideas. That's it, right? And all the soft skills then are limited to that cognitive diversity or lack of cognitive diversity. So like, is going on a course of soft skills a good thing? Reading books, or like all of the above, maybe?
I think that's right. So rather than, I said it earlier, so I think where we normally go with learning and development is we go straight into courses, right? So someone's not very confident presenting in front of the board, challenge I'm faced with all the time. Okay, let's stick them on a presentation training course.
Yeah.
Now, we believe there's 2 steps before that. So there's what we call discover. So this is where curiosity comes in. So first of all, understand like what are the skills that you're trying to acquire. So whether you use, we have a competency framework that's come out of market. I'd happily share it with anyone. There's IOSH have a framework. There's loads out there. But actually, what are the skills that I'm trying to develop? Speak to the people you're working with. What skills are the skills that you need in order to do the job?
Mm-hmm.
And then what we really encourage people to do is get curious about where their strengths are. God, focus on what you're good at first and foremost. Like, why did you get into this profession? What do you enjoy about it? And whether you use psychometrics or not, actually, what are my strengths? And then what are the behaviors that are limiting me? So for something like presentation skills, you could very simply go to, your ability to stand up and present in a structured way. What usually it is a lack of self-confidence.
Yeah, definitely.
Right? So rather than, you can then put a person with low self-confidence on a presentation training course, and it doesn't actually like make them any better presenting because you've not dealt with the root cause. So we talk about, curiosity and discovery is around becoming really curious about your behaviors and how they impact in your role. So identify what you want to work on. Get feedback from people around you. Ask other people. Are there blind spots that you don't know about?
Love that.
Self-assessment is a really dangerous place, and I've seen it. So self-assessment as in, I need to score 1 to 10 on strategy. I reckon I'm a 9.
Yeah. I'm a 9 at all of them. All of them.
You can't believe how many people. So when we do skills assessment centres, we get people to self-rank at the beginning. I mean, you've got a couple of schools. You've got the ones that downgrade themselves, like in the hope that you've got the medium. I'll always go down the middle, and then you've got the ones that are very rarely is it an absolute reflection. So you have to go and find out more. The discovery first place, and then explore is that what we call our coaching service, but actually it's get to the root cause. So if you aren't confident, what is holding you back? Like what are the stories you're telling yourself? If you're very good at being reactive versus proactive, as many people are, what causes that? When do you do your best work? How do you structure your time around that? Without doing that, actually, any skill acquisition can either land on deaf ears or you don't know how to actually do anything with it. And then when it does come to learning, the acquisition of skills, so a bit like we were talking about with books, you can learn a theory or a new way of doing something, but unless you do something with that, like it's a bit like stuff you learn at school. Not sure I've used Greek mythology much, but so I'm not a learner by just stuff. I need to be able to actually do something with it. So we're really conscious when we do development work and learning, acquire some knowledge, discuss it, practice it, then experiment with it in your job, and then most importantly come back and reflect on that. What went well, what didn't? And you have to get vulnerable in between, because you're going to fail. You're going to have that the difficult conversation that doesn't go right, or you're going to give someone some feedback and it's going to land terribly, or you're going to pull people together to do a collaborative exercise and actually people aren't going to speak up, or it's going to feel a bit awkward. So learn, but all that time you're learning from it. And that is the most powerful thing, is these things can be learned, but you've got to get self-awareness. You've got to really understand like what's underpinning and what's holding you back, and then you've got to experiment and reflect. So if you can do those things and find people around you that will support you to do that, it will challenge you to do that. My team, genuinely brighter than me, more curious than I am, but my God, they challenge me to be better. It's terrifying sometimes, like absolutely terrifying. But I love working with them because, these learning pods are a passion project of Kendall's, where she's just gone out and got curious about a load of stuff, and then we've put it into a practical application. That's when I get the best out of people around me, is when I allow them to do stuff they're passionate about. So understand your strengths and absolutely leverage them. The other thing is, actually, if you are responsible for people in this profession, you have to give them structures in which to do all of that and the time in which to do all of that, and the encouragement and support. I don't think our leaders, they dedicate a lot of time to creating strategies that, whether they're pushing a new perspective of safety. I think they focus a lot on what the rest of the organisation need to do. They don't focus much on actually how they support their team to make that change.
what,
Did
like,
that answer the question? Like,
so
'cause
so good. So good, Anna. Honestly, like I've got myself a new toy at my 30th birthday, right? It's like a little podcast specialist mixing desk, and you can have little sounds on it.
yeah.
And there used to be a sound on it for like applaud, but I've took it off. And honestly, the first time I thought about using it in a live kind of interview was right now, because I thought there's no way I can kind of have the words to do justice to what you just said. That was flawless. So I thought, I'm just going to press a button. So I looked over and I was like, shit, I took it off. Damn it.
It's like the Paul Hollywood handshake in the Bake Off. Like,
Yeah. That's it. I'm telling you now, the clap is going on. That is the new thing. It's the Rebranding Safety applaud. If you get that, you've done well. Because all I've got now is crickets and joke drummers. And I don't think that's appropriate.
But it's funny, isn't it? When you start out your career, I started out in recruitment. People have a lot to say about recruitment. I think there's some amazing people doing some amazing work out there in what we do. But did I ever think I'd be so passionate about like developing health and safety professionals? No, but God, I am. Because actually, do you know what? I work with some of the most inspiring, interesting people that are stuck under a stereotype that really makes me angry, quite frankly.
Oh, I really need this applaud button.
but it's, people, God, if I asked someone in the street to describe a health and safety professional and then they met you 10 minutes after, James, they would be absolutely like, what? And I know, because every time I mention what I do, people are like, oh God, that must be. And I'm like, there's some really good people with great ideas that are really like morally driven. They have purpose to what they do. That's why this profession is such an amazing profession to come into. Because you could go into finance and, I'm married to an accountant and, you could spend your life working out the commercial side of a business. Great. Or you could do something where actually it helps people go home safe at the end of every day. Like, awesome.
It's so it's just like I've got no words, Anna. Like you've absolutely nailed it. Like it irks me like to my bones the way that people see me as a safety professional and judge me before they've even met me because of my job role. That I've been to sites and people are genuinely afraid of me coming to site because they think I'm gonna like just nitpick at them. It's going to be a horrible experience. And then I've got there. I remember one guy, he was nearly shaking. He was just so nervous. And when I got there, he was like, oh, you're right, James. Nice to meet you. He was really scared. And I was like, oh, this guy's obviously really nervous, like has a nervous kind of disposition. That's the way. And I thought maybe that's just his personality. So I thought first thing I need to do is just chill him out. I've got to calm down. I've got to get him to calm down. Or else I'm not going to get anything out of him. So he was like, oh, do you want to do you want to do a site tour? I said, nah. I said, mate, I've been driving for 2 hours. Can I have a cup of tea or something? Could we just have a sit down? And he's like, oh, you want, yeah, I can make you a cup of tea. So I was like, well, actually a coffee. But anyway, had a coffee, sat down with him. And I was like, just tell me, I didn't talk about safety for about an hour. And I knew that I needed to commit a lot of time just to get to know him. And relax and calm him down. So I'm like, oh, you're a sports fan. What do you follow? It turns out he likes football, doesn't like rugby. So that was it. I left because he's obviously an idiot. No, I'm joking. And, we just got to know each other. And then we did the site tour. We did some normal safety stuff. And a lot of it for me was that first hour of just getting him to calm down. But then the follow-up of that was, I wasn't nitpicking at him because the second we got back to that safety tour, that walk around the bit, whatever you want to call it, he was back to being nervous until about 10 minutes in where I'm like, I can't remember there was like some bit of paper or something on the floor in the fire escape. And he was like, oh my God, sorry. And I was like, mate, it's just a bit of paper. Like, chill out. I'm not that bothered. Like, I'm only really bothered about something that's really dangerous. And if that is the case, me and you will work together and we'll sort this out. And it turned out that his experience with our profession had been very aggressive, very like to borderline violent kind of interactions where people were just getting angry at him because there was a bit of paper on the floor. So some people do I think some professionals have created this stereotype, but now I think those people are in the minority now. So the stereotype doesn't match our brand doesn't match our vision. That's the end. That's the long and short of this, and it's frustrating.
Yeah, I think two things that come up when you say stories like that is, firstly, it takes someone with emotional intelligence to realize that's what's happening to the guy, right? And actually what you need to do differently, like actually how you need to take the time to build the relationship, to have a different kind of conversation. And the other thing is, actually, a lot of safety professionals I work with or have worked with over the years, nowhere in their job description does it say build rapport, take time to ask questions, be curious. So they would just go straight into, well, my task here today is, and the business hasn't set them up for success either, because they've probably got 6 or 7 inspections they've got to do that day.
Well,
they haven't got time for nicety.
Yeah, sorry, carry on.
It's got to be, no, it's got to be both like elements. It's got to be the individual has to take personal responsibility, really understand what that relationship needs at that point. The other thing that always comes up for me when we talk about like the perception is, we have a unique opportunity, or professionals have a unique opportunity to change that perception in a moment. The whole rebranding safety one individual at a time was born out of the fact that you going on there, that guy now has a different view of what safety could be.
Yeah.
And actually, if we, by being so different from the stereotype, actually that's a huge opportunity. It's a bit like being a good recruiter. There's so many bad ones out there, but actually if you can be good, you really you can make an impact. So I think it's almost like the art of surprise, and actually if someone expects such bad things of safety and you don't interact in that way, you can make such an impact.
Definitely.
So yeah, I'm crazy passionate that we have a group of people, especially people joining the profession now, that are purpose driven. I remember reading the job description for the apprenticeship program a couple of years ago, and the first line of the job description was, the role of the SHE technician is to enforce the Health and Safety at Work Act. Oof. And I just went, I don't know, look, I'm not a millennial. I'm not like starting my career, but I know a couple of things, like purpose driven. Like what's the moral reason this role exists? If you're going to actually attract this role to people and get the right people into the profession, then you've got to talk about the why. You've got to talk about why this exists. You've got to talk about the opportunity to see all elements of business. You've got to be able to see that, encourage people that they can look at psychology, sociology, organizational development. They can look at risk and engineering. You can have this opportunity to view so many different elements of the organization. And actually, you can fast track a career. I know plenty of people that are in directors' roles in their early 30s, which if they were in other functions would just not be possible. No. So I think, it's if I was having my time again, I probably would go into it.
Yeah. Oh, that's good to hear. That's good to hear. I think it's such a good.
Yeah, there's a couple of my clients that I keep asking for a job. But there is. I think there's a lot to be said for this profession. It just needs to keep going with the way it's going at the moment.
Yeah, definitely.
I do think it's happening.
It's got a long way to go. It's got such a long way to go, but we're definitely closer than what we were, at least in my career. I've seen a massive change, and I do genuinely think those of us that maybe do approach safety a little differently in this kind of more non-technical, whatever you want to call it, new view or whatever, safety is originally intended, whatever you want to call it. I think whoever does approach safety in that way, I think all of us have like a little bit of an unspoken duty on ourselves to have those conversations with as many people as possible, because we need to burst this echo chamber that we're in. We need to, the more people that hear it, the better. You're talking to your mum, your mates, your brothers, your sisters, like everyone.
And I know people when they're down the pub that are almost embarrassed to say that they work in health and safety, but be proud of it. Tell people why it's awesome. I think, the profession own that brand. If you feel proud of it, then of what you do and the impact you have and how you operate, then shout about that. Modesty is a real problem for this profession. like actually being able to talk about what they achieve. Because, you know, it's only really when things go wrong we do our best work.
Yeah.
And that needs to
That's a
change.
good point. And I think as well, like I for a long time would be like, we need to like when I thought the title of this podcast, like for so long I was like, I don't want to have safety in the title. Like I don't want that word because it kind of comes with a perception. And then anyway, we came around to rebranding safety. I'm so glad that we did that. So glad that we kept the word safety in there, because whilst if you'd have spoke to me maybe two at least, yeah, probably 2 to 3 years ago, I'd have said to you, we need to come up with a whole new name. We need to remove health and safety. We need to have a new name. Whereas now, actually, I'd look at it completely different and say, we need to own this name, and we need to change the brand that is associated with this name and own it.
And that's the thing, is actually, if we really focus on why this profession exists and we get proud of it and we actually do great work and then we promote that great work, actually we can be proud of working in health and safety rather than calling it something else. You know, like mystifying it for people. We don't need to do that.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, it's there's still a lot to be done, but I'm excited about where it's going. I'm much more. Someone said to me when I started this business, there was a lot of people that didn't like what I was doing. Didn't like it because maybe it's because I was just a recruiter. Maybe I didn't have the authority to state, what the profession should be doing. I'm not a professional. But there was a line that came to that someone said to me at one point after quite a difficult conversation with someone else, where I was feeling like, I'll just get back to doing recruitment. It's easier. Which was, if you're pleasing everyone, you're not making progress. And I live and die by that now, that actually this is supposed, the conversations you and I are having, I want them to feel challenging to people. I want people to listen to this and go, oh, I don't agree, or actually, mate, that doesn't fit. That's okay. Like, if it feels uncomfortable, it's like outside your comfort zone, that's where you grow. Like, if it feels uncomfortable, that's exactly where we should be. If we feel comfortable in all of this, then we're stagnant. So we need to keep having the difficult conversation, keep challenging ourselves and each other. We need to be bold. We need to be brave. We need to not accept maybe the things that we have accepted as a profession previously. And what I love about, the likes of you and the rest of the future leaders that I meet, is actually you will challenge, you will speak your mind. You will look for different ways of doing it. You won't stand by and not be authentic around these things. And I think that's what we need. We need that passion, we need that courage, we need that boldness, and that will help this profession to actually achieve what it was, designed to achieve in the first place.
I think it's worth just kind of saying from anyway, my own experience, at least, is like, this is easier said than done. I think you're right. Like, I have a very I'm very like strict on my way of looking at safety. Like, I would not say strict. I would say strict. My wife would say stubborn. Stubborn is probably a much better way of describing it, if I'm honest. To the point that I've only just done my diploma, my safety diploma. I did the NCRQ one, and there's only one reason I didn't do that, was because it was to stick it to all the, not all just the recruiters. I don't want to tar them all the same brush, but it was to stick it to recruiters. But it was to stick it to recruiters and clients that would only look at me and count my certificates. And I was just like, no. One, that certificate is the least important thing on that CV. And two, it's like, I am so much more than that. So as far as I'm concerned, it's belittling for you to just judge me by that piece of paper. So I stuck at Tech IOSH for a very long time. I stuck at my NEBOSH General and Just Experience for a very long time. And to put this into context, before I got the job I'm at now, looking for a job, and granted being stuck in a very poor culture, very stressful job, I was pretty much to the point of depression, in which I couldn't find anything. I was turned down for interviews, jobs that were way below where I should be. I do think that, and the reason I say this, Anna, is because I'm trying to bring a bit of reality to it, and that yes, we all need to do this 100%, but there's a lot of employers out there that are really far behind this. I don't know if you would agree, and it's really hard.
The other thing is, I don't think it's an and or. I don't think it's an or. Like, you do one or the other. I think you have to be focused on doing an element of both.
Yeah.
Things like NCRQ have given people a different development route from some of the more traditional or the more well established. I think we spend a lot of time educating clients, a lot of time. When someone comes to us for a senior level appointment, they might believe they need a chartered member or a certain level of qualification, but actually more so what they're focusing on is the leadership. You know, they want someone that can develop a strategy, drive change, can present them externally, understands the commercial element of the business, can innovate, all of those things that we focus on. And that's, you know, what a lot of our work comes from. But I recognize it's slow. I also think there is a real challenge for recruitment companies have to be bolder. And it's hard. Recruitment in safety is I watch two parts of our business. So recruitment and sustainability, where it's a highly valued service, where we are really partnered with, most of our work is retained. You know, we work with clients to ensure they find the right person for that role. And then safety, where it's highly commoditized, you know, 15%, 7 agencies, you get your first CVs through the door. And there'll be someone sat in the business with their highlighter, and if it hasn't got an e-brush on it, you're not getting your CVs through. We operate on no win, no fee. And the whole model of recruitment and safety doesn't get the right outcome. I'm really glad that actually a lot of the work we're now starting to do in safety is moving higher up that value chain, where actually we're partnering people, maybe clients that have used us in frameworks, where we can challenge more and say, do you know what, here's James has done all of this stuff, he's achieved all of this, this is his approach, this is his site profile, you know, here's his behavior set. If it's important to you that he has a diploma, then maybe you need to pay for that, or give him the time to do that, or explain to him why that's important. But getting a different kind of talent in the door. And I think, you know, that's still a huge blocker to this profession, is the way we attract and hire talent. It's got to change. It's got to change, because actually people like you have the right skills, and maybe at some point couldn't get through that process because it was just a highlighted, they must have this qualification.
Look at that, just in time, Anna. We come up to about lunchtime, my camera's just died, so you've now got the true insight that whilst I look like I was in this really slick office, you start to see the pile of crap in the corner that's been pushed out of shot. And I was watching the battery go, and I was like, come on, keep going. Just give me a few more minutes.
Hannah, shut up, Hannah.
No, but at the same time, I'm like, I've still got so much I want to talk about. So I was really conflicted. But yeah, enough. And when it went, I was like, oh my God, she's going to think that her internet's gone again. And I was like, no, it's not your internet, it's my camera. Oh, Jesus Christ.
No. So yeah, I think there's still loads of work to be done. I don't think I'm going to be retiring anytime soon. It's unfortunate. But no, I think the baby steps. Please do not make progress.
Do you think, probably one last question for me, like this is something my wife says to me all the time, which is kind of funny, but it's kind of true. It's also quite depressing. But she says to me quite a lot that, you know, you've got to, because sometimes I get really frustrated with the amount of work that not just I do, but so many other people like yourself, like other podcasters, like, you know, other academics, you know, people that are trying to bridge the gap between academia and reality and open that way. So many people out there trying to, like we say, have a different view on safety. And I'm like, there's so much work being out there and I see it, but I sometimes get really frustrated when, say, certain big companies, big bodies, or even like my interactions with people, customers or whatever, they're so rigid in this old way of looking at safety. I get so frustrated in it that my wife says this to me to kind of calm me down, that James, you need to realize that what you're doing probably isn't going to really see the tangible change that you've made until you're retiring or you're retired and you're kind of dead probably. So, you know, but in a way, as much as that sounds really depressing, I think I look at it like, okay, now I've got a baby, I'm looking at it like, that's cool, man, because as long as she goes to school, goes to work, and they're looking at it differently, and she's different, and she's looking at things that I wish I had the perception on the world and people now, I wish I had that when I was younger. So I think that's not a bad thing. But I don't know about you. What do you think? We are literally that far away. I mean, retirement for me, I'm 30, so we're talking probably 500 years old before I can actually retire.
Yeah, one of our competencies, and we used to call it industry ambassador, but now we call it legacy and impact. And to me, the word legacy is actually really important, and more so, like, I haven't had children. Like, what's the world I want to create for them? I actually think if we look at the demographic of this profession, it's almost people that are coming to it now that are driving that change. By the time they're in positions of influence, like real influence, actually, you know, when they're leading functions, when they're leading institutions, then actually the tide will really turn. I think it's Simon Sinek that talks about it, around sort of the different stages of sort of customers that you get, and you get, you know, the early adopters, and then and actually what we need to do is get that critical mass, and that's all I focus on. That was why it was rebranding safety, one individual at a time. If you get enough critical mass, because for some people, storytelling, bright spots, showing them a different way, they need to be told so many times, they need to see there's no alternative to change. And actually that's what we've just got to focus on, just baby steps, you know, individuals. And every time we have a different conversation, the ripple effect of that. I was talking to someone the other day about R numbers, COVID, great. But actually, as a safety profession, what's your R number? How many people do you interact with that have a positive experience that then go on to talk about safety in a different way?
I love that.
Maybe I need to write something on this. But actually, for me, it was really interesting to see that that's how we need to see about our impact, is actually, what is our R number? What is our, you know, how are we engaging with people differently? How many, you know, conversations are we having? Every interaction we have where we tell people proudly we're in this profession, or, you know, supporting this profession as I do, every interaction we have an opportunity. So actually, I think it is frustrating, it's infuriating, it's uncomfortable, but that's exactly where we should be right now. We just need to keep on focusing. And, you know, I feel more so now than I did 5 years ago in this supported network of people that I don't feel like the crazy person at the party. Every time I spoke to a client when I first set frameworks up, they felt like they were on their own. You know, they had a different view of how safety should be done. They didn't feel like there was anyone out there. And actually creating community, that drives momentum. That's what that's what you're doing. That's what I hope we're doing at Acre. I think there's a lot of good people with really strongly connected whys, the purpose. And if we all just continue doing what we're doing, if we focus on that R number, we're going to do something on that now. Actually, but it is true. It's you know, that personal responsibility is be the change you want to see. If you want to change the world around you, you've got to start with yourself.
100%.
Like we said earlier. So
I can see it now. Little hardback book. What's your R number, Anna Keen? I can see it.
God. Yeah, it'll be a very short book. I think if I write a book, it'll be a children's book, because I don't think
you can write a fable like that.
I much prefer this. Like, I much prefer talking to things. I started writing blogs recently, and I can only really write them about my experience. I don't.
I've been trying to write a book for this all started because I love writing, but it actually comes really hard to me. Like, I don't know. I really like the idea, like I was saying, and how I kind of organize my life. Everything is written down because I enjoy the process of it. But like, maybe not creative writing, but, you know, writing a book, writing a blog post, really hard for me because grammar and spelling, I'm not great at it.
No, neither am I.
Yeah, it's really hard. And that was how Rebranding Safety started. For months and months and months, I wanted to do a blog, but it was just because that was what everybody did. And then
Yeah.
I was like, hang on a minute, I love talking, and I can talk for England. So yeah, I'm the same. I could talk to anyone all day long, which
Maybe an
is,
audiobook. Maybe they'll just stop writing them and you can just talk them. That'd be great.
that would be a winner for me, 100%, because I could do that all day long. There'd be no structure to the book.
No, just a run. Oh, maybe that's a podcast, isn't it? All
Wait,
right.
yeah, wait, hang on a minute. That is a podcast. Oh, crap. And I'm giving it away for free. Oh my God.
Yeah, we need to change this. No,
right,
but no,
Anna, I'm gonna let you go. So if which I'm assuming everybody listening to this has been as impressed as I have in the way you talk about safety and what you're doing at Acre Frameworks and the recruitment side as well. So if they are, how do they get hold of yourself or Acre Frameworks, and what does that look like?
So look, I'm on LinkedIn, Anna Keane, Acre Frameworks. We have a website, which is, if you just acre.com/Acre Frameworks. Just drop me a note on LinkedIn and I will share we've got a white paper of the research we did a couple of years ago. If you're interested in understanding more about like our Discover, Explore, Experiment, how that means, we work with clients all over the world, big clients like Amazon and PepsiCo and people like that. So, and we work with really small organizations, we work with individuals. So I'm just passionate about talking about what we do, how we do it, but most importantly, why we do it. So yeah, they can get in contact. I think I'm still on Twitter under Keen on Safety.
Keen on Safety. I see what you did there. Nice. Yeah. I like that.
Yeah, I mean, this surname's got to do me some favors at some point, right? But no, definitely by you anyway. I'm around, but mainly just get them to drop me an email.
And word of warning, once you get hold of Anna, you can't get rid of her. So, which is a great thing.
Bit like that. I'm pretty sticky.
She's got a high R number. She's got a very high R number.
And I also get people involved in stuff a lot. So, that's part of my job, right? It's to bring people together and to find people with similar challenges like you. Gonna write something on number.
Yeah, definitely. That needs to be out there. I really love that, because if you don't write something about it, I'm definitely going to talk about it for the next few months. So, as
long as you quote me every time, it's fine.
God, every time we're talking about our number, Anna Keane, and then if you think about your R number, Anna Keane. As well.
Okay, it's been a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
It's awesome. Love it.
Okay, peeps, hope you enjoyed that conversation. Anna's a lovely lady. I recommend that you go to any of her kind of keynotes, webinars, whatever she's doing. Keep an eye on Acre Frameworks as well. It's an amazing company. They do some amazing work. But ultimately, thank you very much for listening. Don't forget to check out Paranoid Human Performance, and don't forget to check out Project Mollitiam as well. And if you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to subscribe, like, follow, whatever it is, share, rate and review. Just do something nice, help us get out there, help us spread the word. We really, really appreciate it. Thank you very much for listening. I'll catch you next week. Safe.
The views and opinions expressed in this podcast are those of the host and its guest and do not necessarily reflect the position of the companies. Examples of analysis discussed within this podcast are examples only based on limited and dated open source information and should not be utilised in real life as the only solution available. Assumptions made within this analysis are not reflective of the position of the companies. No part of this podcast may be reproduced, stored or transmitted in any form or by any means, mechanical, electronic or otherwise, without prior written permission from James MacPherson.